All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. UAB coming off a bye, returns to Protective Stadium to host Army this week in an American Conference Showdown. So with that, I'll turn it over to Coach Dilfer.
Good morning. Excited for the next battle. Conference game, highly important since we're 0-1 in conference. Neat week. My shoe, my cause, the thing I do. I'm excited about that one. Bundles for Hope this week. It's a wonderful organization that our players are heavily involved in. It seems like it's a home away from home. They have $1 million diaper drive goal. They're at 900,000, and our players are heavily invested in that. So it'd be fun to honor them. We had a good bye week. Got some really good work done, the 3 practices, and then gave them some time to get away from football, which I think is important, and rest their bodies a little bit too. So with that, let's take some questions.
With bye weeks, you guys are so just oriented toward schedule, like schedule oriented. Sometimes you get out of a rhythm a little bit in bye week, and you have to kind of fight against that.
Yeah, I think that's a concern, Steve. It's a delicate balance. The old part of me wanted to practice every single day because I thought we were doing some good things, especially offensively, that I wanted to build on, and I thought defensively it'd be a good opportunity to make, obviously, some corrections. But you got to be cognizant of their bodies, their minds. I think, we go for a long stretch. If you take the beginning of camp until the first bye week, that's a long stretch. And now that they're here so often in the summers, they really don't get a big break. I think you're also balancing that you don't want them burned out. You want them excited to be in the building. So it's a combination of both, and you try to find the balance that you feel is best for this team.
With health-wise, do you feel like you came out of it healthier than you were when you went into it?
Yeah, we came out of Tennessee a little more banged up than I thought. Some things popped up a couple days after, so we were able to rest some guys. Some guys didn't practice. We should be pretty darn healthy this week. There's guys still, you've played 4 games, one against an SEC opponent. You're going to have some stuff. So we got some stuff, but I think the guys can battle through it this week and be ready for Army.
I know it's not like for like, but how much did the Navy game with the option prepare you for this week? And then also, how much did having an extra week to prepare for this help?
Yeah, on paper, it's great. You still got to shed blocks and tackle and do all the things that they make it very difficult to do. You got to match their intensity. I think that's the biggest thing when you play the academies, especially Army and Navy. The two we're really familiar with is they just play so hard. You're watching. I was really impressed with the East Carolina game defensively. They started poorly. East Carolina made some big plays against them. They're playing harder down 28-6 than they were in the beginning. I mean, they're relentless with how they play football. They don't. The scoreboard doesn't matter. Like, they have a standard of effort, a standard of execution, a standard of physicality that does not waver, and so you have to match that. And I think that's the thing that people don't talk about enough. The schemes are difficult. It's a very difficult scheme to play against, but they just play so hard on both sides of the ball and special teams. So I think that's the biggest challenge, more than the triple option and all the other things. It's just matching their intensity.
Jalen Cheek's been your most efficient tackler. How key is he going to be in this game, stepping in for Sarad for a game?
I think they're all important. Everybody on defense, I think, feels like they need to play better. It's going to take everybody. If you look at the Akron game, our best defensive performance so far, that second half, we played everybody. I mean, I think we played 6 safeties, we played 5 corners, played all the defensive linemen, I think 5 linebackers played. So, I mean, I think we played 30-something guys on defense. Like, it was amazing. So, we're going to have to – it's going to take all of our assets playing at a high level defensively to improve upon our performance so far.
And then Sarad himself, I know he's not going to be playing in this one, but how much of a leader has he been on the sideline? How has he responded to that?
Yeah, he practiced really well. He showed up, helped us on the service team, knowing he wasn't going to play, had a great attitude, worked hard, communicated, had good energy. Late in the week was tough. I think it became harder on him late in the week. But it's understandable. And, we met on Friday, and he was excited about this week of preparation and getting better, and so I feel like he'll handle it well.
Coach, he's obviously a big part of your defense. Who do you think will step up this week, and how ready are those guys, do you think?
Well, again, it's going to take all of them. I think A.J. Brown, Jalen Cheek, Pierre, all of them have to step up and play at a higher level. They know that. They don't need the head coach to say that publicly. They know they have to play at a higher level. And for us to be successful defensively, it's going to take everybody highly invested in fixing the issues we've had to this point.
Now, you got to see Army last week. You talked about sort of that relentless nature. What sort of caused them to get off to a slow start, and how do you hope to capitalize on that, maybe yourself?
East Carolina made some plays. It's not like they schemed them up or beat them up everywhere. They were able to run the ball efficiently. They didn't gash them. They didn't gash Army in the run game, but they ran the ball efficiently. And then they just made some really good plays. Receivers making some outstanding plays, quarterback making some outstanding throws, some contested catches. The backs ran really hard. A lot of times the East Carolina backs were tackled for 2 and got 5, tackled for 3 and got 6. So they stayed ahead of the chains. But if you just look at it from a schematical standpoint, Army was in place to make plays, and East Carolina just made them. And then as the game wore on, Army started making a lot of plays defensively. They got the big one high red zone turnover and a low red zone turnover on East Carolina, and then their coverage got stickier. Their run game got better. They got closer to the line of scrimmage. They were more. Army was more aggressive in their calls. So it's not like East Carolina had their way. After about midway through the second quarter, that game was pretty balanced.
In the Tennessee game, late in the second half, you had a couple new guys, Barry Walker and Barron Franks both were playing guard, and it's really, I think it was the first time this year that you'd kind of mixed in some guys. Are those guys kind of ready to sort of join a rotation, or will it be that type of thing?
I think there'll be positional battles that will continue throughout the year. We're not good enough for anybody to get comfortable. So, I think the edge of uncomfortable is where you find your greatness, and we want to make it very uncomfortable with the position battles. If somebody's playing at a higher level than a player that started games, then we're going to give that player the opportunity to play. So Barry and Barron both have practiced at a high level, and we wanted to give them in that game and see how they competed, and both of them graded out pretty well. So, and we have a couple of other offensive linemen that are new to our team that took some time to get. They're taking some time to get integrated, and they're practicing at a high level too. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see changes like that throughout the entire roster, where guys are, some guys are taking advantage of the developmental process and getting better each week, and we'll give them a shot to playing games.
And with the receiver position, with Corey out right now, with obviously he was out for the Tennessee game too, and you had a lot of guys step up. Do you see that as a position that's just going to get better with more time?
Yeah, I think Xavier Daisy will only get better with more reps. Had a really good bye week, coming off of 3-4 outstanding weeks of practice, and played well against Tennessee. I think Evan McCray showed up over the bye week, played at a high level. Strap had a great week of practice. Iverson Hooks. B.J. Hawkins continues to be consistent. A.J. Johnson really hasn't contributed at a high level for us, but is practicing better. And then we call him Tank. Jalen Elder is somebody else that I think has a chance to earn some playing time with how he's practicing. So we're going to continue to throw it to all of them. We just believe in that philosophy, and the ones that are practicing best, most consistent, will get the most targets.
And with defending Armies or any option attack, you ask guys to do a little different things a lot of times. Like Surratt in the Navy game was playing up on the line of scrimmage. When you have guys that when you ask guys to do a little thing different like that, how important is it that it's veterans that you're asking to do that? These are guys that played a lot of football.
It is. Now, the advantage is these off seasons. We were able to work Navy and Army a lot this off season, so it started really before spring ball. So the scheme adjustments is what I would call them. Aren't new. They're not foreign. It's not like we show up that week. And that's one of the mistakes we made with the old staff was, we would introduce these things too close to the game. These adjustments were introduced in February, March. So they understand that some roles, some job descriptions can be different against triple option teams. You also sometimes use different personnel. You have players that don't play a lot in normal down and distance games against traditional opponents that all of a sudden are playing 30, 40, 50 snaps against triple options. So we recruited specifically for some body types to play against these teams. Did not, hold up against Navy. We hope to have a better result against Army.
You guys have suffered from some slow starts, and this being an 11 o'clock kick, does that make it harder to start fast? And how do you guys approach maybe those early kicks? I know you had one 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
but
well, we should be good in early kicks. We were an early morning practice team. Our players are in the building at 6 every day, so this should not be hard for us. We get to be home, which is great. I think starting fast is a product of focus, so we just need to be locked in and focused and treat it as if, we'll be starting this game when we're in the fourth quarter of our practices typically. So their body clock should be fine. It's just a matter of their minds being right.
And then, the running game wasn't really there last week. Is there more of an emphasis to kind of balance things out this weekend?
We have to run the ball. I've always believed in balance. I want to be a balanced offense. It's hard to call runs when you're not running it well and you're not getting movement. But yeah, I do think we have to be a little more stubborn with the run. And that's really me, I need to call more runs and make sure that our week of practice, we're giving our players the best chance to be successful in the run game. So running the football will be a big point of emphasis this week.
Coach, just big picture coming off the bye, where do you feel like this team is at mentality-wise, and how hungry are they for the next part of the schedule?
Yeah, I think, again, I said this a lot early on. I said didn't know who we were. It would take a few games, 4 games to figure it out. I still am learning this team, but I have a much better pulse of who we are. I think we're going to we have to be better in critical situations. This needs to be a critical situation football team. We got to win the third down battles on both sides of the ball. We got to continue to play special teams at a high level. We got to play better red zone defense and hold teams to field goals when they do drive the ball against us. Offensively, we need to kick less field goals and score more touchdowns. I don't want to. It has to be a mature football team. It has to be a smart football team. I think it definitely has the potential to do that. We have a lot of veteran players. We have players now on offense that didn't have a lot of starts that they're starting to feel like veterans. So we have to play a professional style of football where we win those critical down battles.
You talk about kind of recruiting some body types to play against this style of offense, and I would imagine Nigel Tate would have been one of the key ones that you're talking about there. Was he one of the guys that you kind of?
Yeah.
And who needs to step up in there, and place him?
Well, again, I keep hearing these questions. They're good questions. Who needs to step up? The answer is everybody. Like statistically, we're not a very good defense, so everybody has to step up. I think in the middle of the defense, you need your better players to play better. You need your veterans to play better. Guys have done some really good things. The narrative around here a lot of times is, man, 10 guys did their job, 1 guy didn't. That costs us. Or 9 guys did it, 2 guys didn't. Well, my response is, well, we need all 11 to do it then. Or if 1 guy's not going to do it, we need somebody to do something extra special. We just need to play better, and everybody needs to step up. We need to get the ball back. So that'll be the point of emphasis. We have a lot of players we like. They're working really hard. I would not criticize their work ethic, but now it needs to show up in production in the game.
And how? I think you've talked about this in the past, but how do you counter when there's a team like Army that can hold the ball, when they're doing what they can do, they can hold the ball a lot. How do you sort of counter that?
Well, you can't let them. Number one, they'll ruin you if they can go on these 9 to 14 play drives. If they do, you got to force them to kick field goals when they're done at the end of the drive. But if they take the ball for long periods of time and score touchdowns, it makes it incredibly difficult to win the game. So, offensively, you can't let it bother you. You can't let it. You can only control what you can control offensively. So, I think one of the mistakes we made last year against Army, we had 40 plays in the first half, which is an enormous amount of plays for an Army team. Well, one of it is because they scored pretty quick when they got the ball. But we moved it, but then, we dropped 2 huge passes in the first half. We have an interception goes off a receiver's hands in the red zone. We throw another interception because the receiver's not in the right spot and the defender's not supposed to be there. We have a second down play that's going to go for 40 yards and the center doesn't block back, which is his job to do. Like, we just imploded. When everybody did their job, we moved the ball rather easily against them, run and pass. But we just kept stubbing our toe and weren't scoring points, weren't finishing drives with points. So if they are doing that, then you need to answer. Like the Navy game where we did for 3 drives, where they scored, we answered. They scored, offense answered. They scored, offense answered. It's not ideal, but that's the expectation offensively.
You talk about the floor being low, and this defense is coming with a lot of scrutiny. How do you go about approaching that to get better? Is there a mentality that you have to kind of change to get the players, off the floor sometimes?
Yeah, I think we got to get the ball back. We got to force some disruptive plays. We got to create more turnovers. More. The one thing that surprises me defensively is in spring ball and in camp, they were very disruptive. They created a lot of negative plays for the offense. They gave up yards. It's very hard to stop yards in college football. But if you're allowing some yards, you can make up for it by making teams kick field goals, but then creating some disruptive plays and getting the offenses behind the down and distance. Our defense did a really good job with that. That has not been the case so far this year. So they need to become more disruptive, so create more negative plays, create more long down and distances for the opposing offenses, and I believe they will. I believe that's who they are. I just don't think it hasn't happened for 4 weeks, so you're like, okay, wait a second, when's it coming? But I do think that's in their nature. It's the scheme. It's the type of players we recruited, so I do believe that is going to happen.
And then how much can a off week kind of serve as a maybe a momentum changer or a refresh for
Well, I think everybody hopes for it. I think anybody that's lost the game before the bye week hopes for that, but hope is cheap, right? I think you got to go do it. You got to or I should say hope is empty sometimes. Like you got to go make it happen. And I think this is a really critical week of practice for us, to be honest with you. I thought the bye week was good. I do really believe in my heart of hearts we got better at some things. But they got to show up today ready, fired up about being here. They got to show up today with the chip on their shoulder. They get to do this. This is a privilege, and it needs to be represented that way when they get here at 4:50 today. So I'll be keeping a close eye on the ones that are desperate to turn this thing around, and the ones that are going through the motions. I just don't think you'll see play very much on Saturdays, and those might be names that you've seen play for 4 weeks. Don't be surprised if guys don't come in today tingly and ready to get better and practice at a high level, that they're not playing on Saturday.
You talk about disruptive players. Is Jamichael Rogers healthy and
Yeah.
ready to be that kind of guy?
He should be. He's getting there. The setback was a little more, I don't want to say severe because it makes it sound so bad. It just took longer than we expected. But he did practice a lot last week and looked really good. So, he's a very disruptive player, as you know, because you've been to a lot of practices. He is a guy that needs to make plays for us. We need defenders like him that just make plays beyond the X's and O's, and he's one that can do that.
You've made some bold moves in terms of substitutions. You talked about the last couple of weeks about how nobody's job's guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
What message are you trying to send to your team to in those?
It really hasn't. It's the same message I've been sending since the off season, which is, there's a standard, and we expect, we don't expect you to play perfect. That's not the standard. Listen, these are NFL guys don't play perfect. I actually watched quite a bit of NFL the last couple of weeks. Oddly enough, I usually don't, and you see mistakes everywhere. Guys make all kinds of mistakes. So it's not plain perfect, but the standard of preparation, the standard of buy-in, the standard of selflessness and energy, the standard of appreciation that they get to do this is matter of fact. And there's players that don't do it. I still love them, still want to coach them, still want them in the building, but they need to understand they're not going to play. And that's I think all you've seen is working with players for a while and then just drawing a line in the sand and saying, hey, if you're not going to meet the standard, then you're not going to play. And doesn't mean you're a bad person, but now you got to reprove yourself that you can meet the standard every day. So, and we'll work with you. We'll give you time off on a bye week. We'll help you rest up a boo-boo if you got a boo-boo. We have good resources to help you get better academically, athletically, socially, mentally. But if you're not going to do your part, then how can we trust you? So we talk a lot about being a trustable player, and a trustable player is somebody who prepares like a pro and then goes out and plays the best of their abilities. That's all we're asking. Just go play the best of your abilities. And when guys don't meet the standard, I think you're really putting a lot of people at risk if you're going to trust somebody in a game that has proved to be untrustable during the week.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.